And then it follows 后加减法. What follows are addition and subtraction methods. And we begin. 或胸中烦而不呕. 若 if the chest, the middle of the chest is vexed, but there is no nausea. So we had vexing and nausea, and we have our banxia in there. But what happens if we don't have it? 去banxia ren shen. We get rid of the banxia and the ren shen, and we add 加 gualo shi yi mei. We add one whole gualo, chopped up. So we get the whole chuan gualo, the whole gualo. So the skin, the seeds, the flesh, the whole thing. 胸中烦而不呕. This is the commentary. When there is that vexing in the middle of the chest, but no nausea, 热聚而其不逆也. The heat has clumped, and there is no rebellion of qi. There's no qi ascending. 甘者令人中满. Sweet, so important if you know your flavors and natures. Sweet brings people, causes people to be full in the middle. Right? We want to fill the middle. Sweet is the way to go. But if we don't want to fill the middle, we got to get rid of our sweet. All right? 防热聚. In this circumstance, we have heat that's clumped. 无用人参之补. We do not want to use the tonifying effect of ren shen. So we don't want the banxia in there because things are not going up, and we don't want the tonifying building nature of ren shen because it's clumped. And so if we put something in there, it's just going to get more stuck. 辛散逆气. Acrid disperses qi going the wrong direction. 气不呕. But here, there's no nausea. 无用banxia之心. So we don't use the acridity of banxia in this situation. 温热以寒. We use warming is good when there is cold. 疗疾以苦. And when treating clumping, it's good to use bitter. So when there's heat, we use cold. I mistranslated, I'm sorry. When there's heat, you use cold. And in treating clumping, we use bitter. 瓜蒌时苦寒. The bitter and cold of the 瓜蒌 is going to be used to 邪胸中云热, to disperse or drop out the clumped or the accumulated or stored heat in the chest. Great. We got to get rid of acrid going the wrong direction, because if someone is clumped here and then we put in herbs that are going to go acrid, we're just going to get it up in their head, they're going to get worse. If we put in sweet, they're going to get stuck on top of their stuck. We need cold, we need bitter, we take out 2 herbs and add 瓜蒌时. 若 if 渴者, they're thirsty, 去banxia加人参. We get rid of the banxia, but we add 人参和前程4两半 to the previous amount to get to 4.5 liang of 人参. As well as 瓜蒌根4两, we add 瓜蒌root, which we call 天花粉 today. 瓜蒌根4两, 4两. Banxia, 早津液. Banxia dries liquids or fluids. 非渴者, those who are not thirsty, 所以 it is good to use. Therefore, if someone is thirsty, we shouldn't be using banxia because it dries up fluids. 人参甘而润者. Renshan is sweet and creates moistening. 瓜蒌根苦而凉. The root of the gualo or 天花粉 is bitter and cool. It's 彻热生津. It penetrates into heat, so it's good for this clumped heat, and engenders or creates fluids. 二五为当. These 2 substances are excellent. Excellent at what? Excellent at treating thirst and engendering fluids. Thirst due to heat. 若 if, there's our next if. If 腹中痛者, if there is pain in the abdomen, 去黄芩加芍药3两. We get rid of 黄芩and we add 芍药3两. So 芍药has suddenly appeared whenever there's abdominal pain. 去黄芩, this is the commentary. We get rid of 黄芩, 无汗中. for those when there is a fear of cold. So Huangqin is bitter and cold, and if there's cold, which is how we know that pain in the abdomen is due to cold in the lower jiao, we need to get rid of the bitter cold herb. Jia Xiao, we add Xiao, yi tong yong, to flow the blockages. And that obstruction, Julian will address the idea of Xiao, and Xiao is not a cold herb. It's mildly cool, but its properties of flavor far outweigh its temperature, its nature. And so we'll start to see that anytime there's an obstruction, anytime there's something like that, we want the Xiao to go in and mitigate the intensity. And so if you look at an obstruction as something that sticks out its elbows as it goes through your intestines, or spikes, that Xiao is going to come in and say, soften up. It's not going to dissolve it like Mang Xiao. It's not going to put liquids all the way through it, but it's just going to take the edge off so that there isn't that pain that's associated with something with an obstruction. Ruo, our next if. 斜下皮影, if there is hardness at the ribs, beneath the ribs. 去大枣, we get rid of 大枣, 加母里4两, we add 母里4两. Now that's pretty good now that we know, all right, if any time we're worried that we need to block the middle, we want 大枣, and any time we need to make sure qi is moving, we need to take it out above and below. And we got some fun commentaries coming. 甘令人中满, sweet leads people to have fullness in the middle. He said this before, he's saying it again. 脾者, those who have the P symptoms, 去大枣之甘, we must get rid of the sweet of 大枣. 咸以软者, salty, it softens. 脾饮者, that which is hard. 加母里之咸, we want the salty of 母里. 若心下急, if there is those palpitations or the this right here beneath the middle, it's called beneath the heart. 小便不利者, and there's a difficulty of urine. Very important to put those two together. It's not this or, it's if they have the palpitations beneath the heart and the urine does not come out. 去黄芩加茯苓4两. We get rid of 黄芩and we add 茯苓4两. And we need to start thinking, the moment that we see palpitations below the heart, difficulty urinating, then you've got this vexing that's here, and they're like, Now, that's stuck below, fluids. Now, what do we call when that building of fluids below that can't come out builds so much that it starts moving up the body and directly affecting the heart? Not, I'm stuck here, so I get a response here, but literally starts to move up.
Like running piglet?
Bantun, running piglet, right? So it's a question of degree. When we see this palpitations below with difficulty urinating, we know unchecked it's going to go to running piglet. This is like running piglet light, like 1 calorie piglet. Okay? So just then we know right away we're going to get rid of the huangqin, we're going to add the fuling, and I personally would have taken out the dazao because he said it earlier. So we can assume it's probably in there. What is he going to say here? 因而水处不行, when we drink and the water pens in or gets stuck or gathers and does not move, 胃急, this leads to palpitations. 小便不利, when the urine does not come out. 内经曰, the Neijing states. 肾与碱, when the kidney needs hardening. 即使苦以减身, we quickly, immediately eat bitter to dry out or to harden, to create, solidify, thank you, solidify the kidneys. And this 即使, you'll see it immediately, you'll see quickly, you'll see anxiously, but that ji has a lot of meanings. And one of the meanings is emergency. And so this might mean you don't just eat a little bitter, you eat a lot of bitter, or you eat a lot of sweet, or you eat a lot of sour. That ji there also means amount. How much are you eating? Like, really go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's not like, oh, by the clock, quickly. It's just intensity. Eat, not just quickly. 则水以减, and thus the water can easily or will beneficially solidify. And so if we look at the kidneys, I want us to think of the kidneys as it likes water, but it needs air or fire. And so you take a kidney that's weak and you throw it in the pond, and it can't swim because it's tired. So it starts to flail. And if we take any person who can't swim, I know it sounds strange, but it's not. Take somebody, throw them in the water who can't swim, and watch them panic and flail. They're like, and they're kind of splashing, and they're convinced they're going to drown, and this is all going on. That's the Xin-Xia-Ji. That's the palpitations of the heart, that panic. And it's the panic. Where do they come up with this analogy? Throw somebody in water. They watch the person completely panic and freak out in the water, and they're like, oh, check that out. Look, meets water, scared of water, water too much. What do? Get rid of the water, the kidneys calm, the heart doesn't panic. So this is all looking at natural things. So we're continuing in all of these or, and then he follows with if. So if they have this, if they have these things. And we've just talked about if they have those palpitations beneath the heart and the urine is unable to come out, we get rid of the huangqin and we add fuling in 4 liang. Which is not the same as 175 grams, which we had in that earlier formula, but 4 liang is still a decent dose. So, the commentary, 阴耳水处不行, when drinking, the fluids gather and do not move. 胃急, this is palpitations. 小便不利, the urine not able to come out. 内经约, the Neijing states. 肾与减, if we wish to solidify the kidneys, 即食苦以减身, we dramatically, quickly, emergency amounts eat bitter to solidify the kidneys. 这水以减, and thus the water is able to be solidified. 故去黄芩, thus we get rid of huangqin. And if we're not careful, we might think, well, wouldn't the bitter of huangqin get rid of that water? And remember that huangqin is a very light herb physically, and therefore it's going to get rid of high things, not low things. 淡味神血味阳, that bland flavor, 渗血, it leaches and gets rid of things, and it is a yang flavor. 复令甘丹, the sweet blend of fuling, 一邪浮水, gets rid of that hidden or latent or stuck water. I won't go into a lot of this. Please review those lines of fuling if you haven't reviewed them in a while, because that's where they are covered on understanding fuling and what this bit is about. 若不可外有为热者, if there's no thirst, and the outside has mild heat, 去人参加归3两. Take out the 人参 and add 桂枝 3 两. 温服去为寒郁. Taken warm, cover, get the light sweat, they'll get better. So we follow the Guizhi Tang method, even though it's Xiao with Guizhi inside of it. 不渴者, the commentary, not thirsty. 离和也, the inside is okay, it's calm. So the pernicious hasn't gone in to create that. 故去人参, we get rid of the 人参. 外有为热, the outside has mild heat. 表为戒也. This tells us the surface has not been relieved. 加归以发汗. We add the guizhi to push out, to fa, to emit the sweat. Mild sweat, very important. The blanket, don't forget the blanket. It's put in here again, blanket. 若咳, if there's coughing, 去人参大枣生姜. We get rid of the 人参, we get rid of the 大枣, and we get rid of the 生姜. Okay, now there's coughing, and we see that we want to get rid of the 人参. We immediately know that it's a wet cough, not a dry cough, right, from looking at the herbs. Julianne was talking about that the lines are brief, but when we look at the formula, we should be able to look back and describe the patient. So aside from the subtitle of the classic text, the classic formula describes the patient. So we should know whether there's heat, cold, wet, dryness from the herbs chosen, and that fills in all the information we don't have in these very sparse lines. So, renshan generates fluids. We want to get rid of it. They're coughing. It's obviously there. Dazao. We want to get rid of the dazao. Dazao fills the middle. There's some stifling. Maybe we want to get rid of the dazao. Shengjiang. Have to think about that. Why would I want to get rid of shengjiang? And the answer is really simple when we read the rest of the sentence. 加无尾子半升, we add 无尾子 half a sheng, 干姜2两, and dried ginger 干姜2两. So we're not getting rid of, we're replacing. And I went to a bit of effort for you all that the different measurements, but a sheng is about 200 milliliters, and it's a measurement that is used for things that are small and round, like some of the banxia, or anything that can be filled up in a liquid measurement.
Here, you can't see it if you can.
If you have,
I think it's better in your hand. It just looks like a big clump of.
a big clump. So you'll see the sheng measurement for anything that could fill up
That's great.
a measurement in a liquid volume. Now, if I had slices of dangui, there'd be so much empty air in my liquid measurement, it doesn't make sense. So that's that measurement. And we're using ban sheng of wu wei zi, which is 100 milliliters according to the correct handout of the Shanghanlun English translation. This is not our translation. This is the Mitchell-Wiseman one that went to the effort of doing that. And so that's this much wu wei zi. If you've ever wondered how many grams is half a sheng of wu wei zi, the answer is 60 grams. So we are getting rid of renshan, getting rid of dazao. We're replacing the raw ginger with dried ginger, and we're adding 60 grams of wu wei zi. Now, hopefully some of you Sherlock Holmes type people like myself will immediately flip back to SHLv110 and see, okay, SHLv110, wu wei zi, what was the amount? Half a sheng. 60 grams of wu wei zi. That will warm and and to hold in sour the lungs. That will work. 10 grams, if they're not very sick, it'll be okay. So the commentary. 咳着 coughing, 气逆也, that's qi in rebellion, qi going the wrong way. 甘子勇气, sweet blocks qi. We've had this whole clarification on sweet. Makes the middle full. Now he's come right out and saying, instead of saying the middle full, it blocks qi. That's why we want dazao in these formulas. We want to create a block that things cannot penetrate, wind doesn't go anywhere, the sweetness sticks up things. So he's come right out and said, sweet creates a blockage of qi. 故去人参大枣. Thus, that's why we get rid of the renshan and the dazao. 内经曰, the Neijing states, 肺与手, and when the lungs need to be gathered in, 即使, there's that extreme, immediate, large amount, eat 酸以受之, eat sour to gather it. 无为子之酸以受逆气. We use the sour of wu wei zi to show or pull in or restrain the ni qi, the qi going the wrong way. 60 grams, we'll do that. 肺寒则咳. So, when the lungs are cold, we have cough. Does that mean that there's no such thing as lung heat cough? Of course there is. But this one we're addressing with fluids. That's why we got rid of renshan. That's why we got rid of these things. So, 肺寒则咳. When the lungs go cold, they cough. 三以心热. And this is dispersed with acrid and heat. 故以生姜以干姜之热也. And thus, and this is the E character. And this E character, if you're following along in the Chinese, most people misconstrue it as to mean easily. Thus, it's easy to use dry ginger instead of raw ginger. But that E happens to be the E of the I Ching, the book of changes. In classical Chinese, the E that we understand as easy means change. Anything that can change is easy. Right? So, E, So we change the shengjiang to ganjiang, so we have more heat. We want the wuweizi and more heat. And all of that is one line 98 in our book. It is one whole page, 2, 3, it's almost 4 pages. And that is SHLv110 Tang with its ors and ifs and substitutions. But we're not done. We got to bang this one out because it's going to come over and over again in the next group of lines. And if we look at Andrew's slot machine of herbs, so we have Chaihu, Huangqin, Banxia, Renshan, and then we have Shengjiang, Gancao, Dazao over here. We got those 3. So the Dazao, we want it in there when we're stopping up wind and helping mitigate things. We want to take out the Dazao when we don't want that stickiness in the middle. So if it's struck by wind, zhongfeng, if it's cold, but they've got symptoms where you need to shore up the middle, you want that sticky sweet. When you have the palpitations and stuck urine, when there's a problem above and below, you don't want a blockage in the middle. You take it out. Shengjiang, it's great, but we take it out when it's not strong enough and replace it with ganjiang. More heat, more drying. Gancao, we have the sweet of Gancao, and what's nice is at no point has he said in all the sweets, take out the Gancao. And that makes us think, okay, do I need to relook at the fact that maybe this is not Zhi Gancao? Maybe in one book here it says Zhi, everywhere else it said Zhi, and this one it hasn't. We can decide what we think about that. Not that important at this point, though. But we have our Gancao in there to help the system. And then we have our Renshan. Do we need more fluids in the system and vitality, or do we need to take it out because there's vexing or there's too much water in the system? We have Banxia. It's warming and it's going to go down. So that's important in rebellion. But if there's no rebellion or there's clumping, Banxia needs to be switched out. We look at the Huangqin. It's bitter cold. It's going to drain. It's draining that part which is closer to the inside as opposed to the surface. But if the problem is stuck water and not heat, we got to get rid of it and put in Fuling. And then we've got our Chaihu. Chaihu never changes. Chaihu is in there all the time. And I said I would talk a little bit about the acridity versus bitterness of Chaihu. And of course the answer is cook it, taste it. But if you take anything that is acrid and you boil it long enough, it will end up either not acrid or the bitter aspect of it becomes very pronounced. And that is my opinion of why there's a double cook in there. It's not to harmonize the flavors, it's actually to accentuate the bitterness of those herbs. Sweet comes out more with cooking, and bitter comes out with water reduction. And I think that's why it's double cooked. That's my personal opinion. It's such an important formula that I just want to take a second to point out a couple of comments by Chen Shenwu, who was the more modern day, who died in the Cultural Revolution. But he has something that I really like in terms of clarifying. And he's once again doing a clarification of this idea of the outside in and inside out, or where the symptom is. So, 往来寒热, hot and cold coming and going. 在无汗时不发热. When there is a fear of cold, but there is no heat being emitted, they're not hot to the touch, they don't feel it. 在发热时不无寒. When there is heat, but there's no fear of cold. 次代表少养病治寒热. So what this means is in the cold phase, there's absolutely no sign of heat. And in the heat phase, there's absolutely no sign of cold. Okay, it seems easy, but it's really easy to miss that. 与太阳病, this compared to the 太阳 illness, 只发热无寒. In the 太阳 illness, they have heat and fear of cold, 同时 at the same time. 病见不同. 与以阳明病. And this is also differentiated from Yangming, which is 热不寒, that they're hot with no time of cold. And so Taiyang, we have to remind ourselves, it's hot and cold together, or hot and fear of wind and cold together. And Yangming, there's not going to be any vacillation. It's heat. And so if we can be clear about that, what differentiated is when it's hot, when it's cold. And it's not cold with fevers. It's just cold and hot. And so you'd think it's very, very hot, very, very cold. And that the other sign of this is that 发作无度, it doesn't have a measurement. 与疟疾, because we don't think about it today, but in this day, how do you know it wasn't malaria? And the way you know it wasn't malaria is that malaria has a regularity to it. It's 定左有定时, right? And this does not have a regularity to it. So 现在班表班里争与之争. So you've got halfway in and it's battling, and there's no time limit to or frequency of it. And this is what's known as coming and going heat when it is in this particular case. He also makes great efforts to differentiate, to not confuse when there's heat trapped in the xiongzhong or in the middle of the chest, that this heat and vexing is not the same as when there's palpitations below the heart. And to not confuse that, because if we see someone who's vexed, we might confuse that with this. But there's a fear aspect, a cold aspect, a panic aspect to palpitations below the center versus the vexing and irritation moving around of heat trapped in the chest. And then he says what's also important to differentiate is that there is a line when we get to the Xiaoyang of what are Xiaoyang symptoms. And so we have all these different possibilities, but it's important to remember that Xiaoyang has a couple of classic things, which is a bitter taste in the mouth, a dry throat, and vertigo in the eyes. That is, the eyes are a bit dizzy. And that we need to consider whether we are looking at a Xiaoyang illness, whether we are looking at something stuck in between. And they're the same thing, but here we're saying it's Taiyang and Yangming going back and forth. And so it's in between, but we're seeing it go both ways. Whereas Xiaoyang, it's clonk right there in the middle and doesn't have that same movement, according to Cheng Wuji.